Are you getting all your protein in? Is it a struggle? Is it a struggle because you can't wrap your mind around the idea that you need that much? Or maybe there's incongruent messages that have come to you because what you thought you needed is actually been replaced by advice to take in far more. And we can't not talk about this elephant in the room. At some point in your life, it came across your airways that if you ate too much animal protein, you were at greater risk for disease or cancer. And I want to contest that one in just a moment. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top struggles and concerns. I share what to eat, how to move, and how to change your mindset, sometimes about those other two, so that you can have the energy and the vitality that you want, need, and deserve in this second and better half. And today, I'm talking all about 10 ways to boost your protein intake. But I think before that, we've got to set up the persuasive argument, shall we call it that? The science behind needing more protein, and call out the elephant in the room for those of you who are listening and still maybe even intellectually have been able to say, okay, I do need more protein. I understand and see the science. And by the way, the science is not new. I mean, there became a lot more science that came out since like 2008, but that honestly was just when it came on my radar. And there was much more that's come out, and it's 25 and 30 years old that research began to look at in terms of frailty and older adults and what was happening when they were aging with their muscle and their muscle protein synthesis, which causes, as it decreases, it means we can't use protein as well. We have to take in more protein in order to simulate for the use of our bodies the same amount. And so, although you're going to read and probably for a very long time, this won't ever be put to bed in our lifetime. You're going to read that, up to 40 grams of protein per meal, you won't absorb all of that. There is actually been research back in 2013 that the American College of Sports Medicine suggested that there were reports of in like 70-year-old males were the study. Now, don't quote me on or come and ask me in the show notes, like, what was that study? Because I would have to actually Google it and bring it back up to know what was the journal. But I've referenced this in my book and articles all along the way, so much that I feel like I'm talking about it with familiarity. But 70-year-old men were compared to 20-year-old young men lifting weights and following a program that was comparatively the same. Now, obviously, they didn't give each of them the same weight, but it was, say, the same percentage, the same sets and repetitions. And then they gave them the post-workout shake. And they looked at recovery and the amount of strength and the repair and the rebuilding of the muscle that occurred. In order for it to occur the same, the 20-year-old could take in 20 grams of protein for recovery. The 70-year-old needed 40 grams. And then they were comparable in the gain of strength and lean muscle tissue afterward. So we know that, we are aging, but we're aging maybe because we're still following the old ways of thinking. We're still, thinking, well, okay, yes, I should lift weights, but no, I don't need extra protein. Well, you're going to miss the boat there because yes, you'll have an increase of muscle protein synthesis even from the resistance training, but then you've opened up that opportunity, that window of opportunity, and then not used it by eating more protein, which also will boost your muscle protein synthesis. And the power of the two of them together is what really will make such a great difference. So I want to come back to the animal protein dilemma that some of you may be facing. So before we go on, let's talk about that. All right. So some of the research that was done that shows with a higher consumption of animal protein, there's a greater risk of cancer. In my book, You Still Got It Girl, I pointed this out and I talk a little bit about it in my program, the signature program from the book called the After 50 Fitness Formula for Women course, that those studies don't give you all the details when somebody relays something like that. And this is one instance where it really matters. So some studies like that were done based on a survey. How much animal protein do you eat, right? And often they're giving an incentive, like a financial incentive for completing the survey. And, tracking people, like what's their risk of disease and cancer down the road if they have a high, animal consumption or if they don't. But the people who are most likely to be incentivized to complete those kinds of studies need the money, and they may come from a lower economic status, maybe a lower educational status, and notoriously or historically there has been an association with, educational status also often meaning lower micronutrient levels in a diet. Simply because of awareness, not intentionally necessarily. But we then have to look at, if you or I were going to go out and intentionally increase our animal protein, we're more likely to buy organic foods, those with labels that tell us this is, free range chicken. This is, no antibiotics used, and organics and those kinds of meats or wild meats like bison or venison or elk are more expensive. And that eliminates, the fairness or equality of you comparing yourself to someone who's eating bologna or hot dogs, and a low grade of animal protein. So I just want to call that to your attention and shake it up. And if this is the first time you're hearing that, it may not be the only time you need to hear it. But if you then think of this again, that animal protein is or isn't good, right, and you're still making that decision for yourself, that may help your awareness. And here's what we know. Animal protein is much more easily digested. And for women who are in midlife, as hormones change, that changes your gut health and the absorbability of good things, the permeability of things not so good. And it's important that digestion and absorption, so simulation is there, or assimilation is there and easier for you. And we know that animal protein is better and easily digested by women, and it's very supportive of hormones. So, namely, insulin, number one. So, supporting blood sugar. And if we support that, we support your estrogen level, we support testosterone. So, let's now dive in to 10 ways that you can, if you're struggling, boost your protein on a day-to-day basis. All right. So listen, I want you to get it from whole food as much as you possibly can. But I also know how very busy you and I both are. I swore up and down for 30 years. I will never, ever, 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 ever sell supplements until I did. Because when I started using supplement protein, back in my early 30s. It was as I was training for my first marathon. So literally, I was, I think, 30, 31. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was buying it off the shelf at the grocery store, occasionally going to the health food store, and trial and error, right? So I threw away a lot of protein powders, that didn't taste good, but I was also consuming a lot of them with a lot of products in them that I didn't realize were backfiring on me, probably, or I got lucky that they didn't while I was consuming them. So I didn't know what I didn't know, and I realized that fast forward 30 years later, not 30, I guess that would make me 60, to 20 years later, more of my clients were still doing the same. They were still making mistakes. So they knew enough that yes, they should increase their protein intake, that smoothies were a good way to do it and easy, convenient, yummy, but they didn't know the difference between one protein and another. And that is when I started seriously considering, okay, wait a minute, reel those words back in that I've said for decades and reconsider. So here is how I like to have the protein most in a smoothie or a shake for breakfast. And for me, it's been a way to do breakfast instead of skip breakfast, or to have something high in carbs and primarily sugar, right? So I used to love cereal. I grew up on cereal. Did we not all grow up on cereal? But that is a terrible way to start, and the other way is what? Toast, even if it's got peanut butter on it, it's really not enough protein to offset the high carb breakfast start. You need to start with protein. So it's an easy vessel for me. It's not just the protein. It is the fact that I've got the protein for a high protein power start for supporting blood sugar levels, energy levels, decreasing my cortisol, starting to or stopping the breakdown of muscle, making it easier to build up the muscle. But I'm also putting 2 handfuls of greens in that, maybe cucumber, maybe celery, depending on what I'm making. I might be putting a little bit of fruit in it, not a lot, a little for flavor. I'm putting a healthy fat in it. It might be nut butter, it might be MCT oil. I prefer to get mine in food, nuts, seeds, or nut butter or seed butter, as opposed to an MCT oil, but you choose you. I like avocado for the same reason. Healthy fats in real food, in my book, far better than adding oil, right? So totally up to you. But those things, now I'm not going to sit down and take the time to make those things. So I might have leftovers. That's another way to get all those things. And if you'd rather do that, fantastic. I find for some of my clients who have thyroid issues, definitely Hashimoto's, that is better and easier to stabilize blood sugar. So you got to do you. But if you opt to do it this way, that's why I do it. It is a quick breakfast option. So whether you like to drink it or you make it thicker and sit down to a bowl, this has been my breakfast of choice more often for the last 27 years than anything else. If I have leftovers for breakfast instead, I will often still have a smoothie bowl at some point during my day because, again, it's such an easy and fast way. It's faster than putting together a salad. It's just a quick way to boost my overall micronutrient density with 2 cups of veggies, 3/4 cup of fruit, some superfood additions to add nutrition and fiber, and it keeps you full for hours. Next, number 2 is an on the go option. Now, this is one I have my clients do very often. So if you are still somebody who's going out to a gym, a lot of times we're out and then we're out and about. Like I'm going to go to the gym and the gym, okay. Gyms build themselves conveniently next to grocery stores, right? And people do that on purpose. So we tend to like, I'm going to run that second errand. I'm going to stop at the post office. I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to do my Target run if you're still do those with the times of Amazon. But I encourage my clients to take along a shaker bottle with a protein powder in it. I do it all the time when I'm heading for errands myself after the gym because, if you're going to get stuck and you're really hungry, about 45 minutes after a workout, That is the time when you are really vulnerable, right? 'Cause you start thinking about a meal, but then you want to go do one other thing. I'll just add cold water, shake it, drink it, and that way I never miss the window for boosting muscle protein synthesis. If you wait more than 2 hours to eat, you've missed it. So think about that. I'm not tempted then by something that doesn't serve me just because I've let my blood sugar dip. Third, there is a pre workout smoothie. So it's been proven that high quality protein ingestion before a workout can reduce the muscle protein breakdown that occurs with exercise and supports recovery from that workout better than nothing before a workout. Especially true for midlife women. So even if your goal is fat loss, and by the way, it's fat loss, it's not actually weight loss. And I'm going to say more about that in a second. Consumption of protein prior to your workouts is going to power up your workout. And actually, back to that fat loss. If your goal is weight loss, fat loss, increasing your protein, not just your body weight in pounds, that number is your daily gram of protein intake. Divide it up into those 30 to 40 grams of protein at each meal doses. Okay. That's if you love your weight right now. But if you're trying to lose weight to get to an ideal weight, you take that ideal weight and then you add about 10 to 15% to it. You need more protein when you lose weight in order to prevent the muscle loss that occurs during weight loss. So if you minimize it, then you're also resistance training. You can almost avoid muscle loss during weight loss. And if you have that muscle loss, you're going to slow your metabolism. If you lose weight, you slow metabolism. That's just by nature of what happens with weight loss. Next, post workout. So we've got to fuel those muscles. You broke them down. They need repair. Repair takes protein. Muscle protein synthesis is reduced in older adults. Two things that boost it are high dose of high quality protein. High quality means an adequate essential amino acid and strength training, a strength training workout that takes you to complete muscle fatigue several times for the same muscle group. Combining those two boosts frequently is the best way to enjoy higher muscle protein synthesis in your second half. If you're training for endurance events, by the way, that's not recommended. You're going to need to eat sooner after your workouts because they're tougher, they're longer, and they come more frequently. Your body is constantly in a state of breakdown if you're not careful. But otherwise, you'll want to wait about 60 to 90 minutes right after a workout, okay? Because there is a blunting effect on muscle protein synthesis that sticks with you for just a little while. So 60 minutes, if you can wait, great. If life says, oh my gosh, you can't, or you're not going to be able to get it, don't stress. Think about 80-20 rule. Most of the time, do it that way when it's possible. Your muscles have the greatest muscle protein synthesis at about that 90-minute mark after the workout. So that's when you'll increase further with a high protein shake or a meal. If you're sitting down to 5 ounces of salmon, boom, you're good. Next, as a light meal anytime. I have clients who often would say, I skip a meal, I wasn't that hungry. And I'm saying, let's not do that. I know sometimes you're like, well, that's just fasting. Well, no, it's not quite the same. We really want to look at why don't you have an appetite, right? So if you are consciously fasting and you've worked yourself to that, your body will change. Your hunger status will change somewhat. But a smoothie bowl or a smoothie glass is a good option if your appetite isn't ripe for something bigger or more. Or, I will do this sometimes when I get home late. If I haven't been able to or thought to, say maybe I've been out for the whole day and I'm getting home late, or flying used to be. So there's so much less of that. I was trying to think, when did I used to do that? It was flying. It was usually from going on trips, and that whole saga of early at the airport, then you're on the plane, and then you got to go get your luggage in your car, and by the time you get back, if it's 8 o'clock, by the time you get home, I don't want a big meal then, but a smoothie, because usually, I don't know about you, but after flights, I'm starving. So that's a great time to have it. But there are other opportunities too. And some people will tell me during the heat of the summer, when it's just ultra hot, that they'll do that for a dinner because it's kind of been hotter later in the day. And I will suggest sometimes to clients that they do, say, 2 smoothies in a row to give their digestive system a break. And we might do 3 days of that, where they do a dinner and breakfast are both a smoothie, and they're having a regular lunch, or it could be breakfast and lunch or lunch and dinner. But most commonly, breakfast is one of them, and it's either lunch or dinner is the other of them for, say, 3 days in a row. And that's just a nice digestive break, because sometimes your body has to work so hard doing healing, doing repair, fighting, immunity, that a light meal can make it easier and better, and sometimes just wiggle you off of a plateau as a midday guiltless snack. So let's say you are hungry. Mostly you try not to snack. But if you've got blood sugar issues or high energy needs and demands, and you need to snack, you'll be better served by having protein with whatever else you choose. If you have a chocolate craving, add raw cacao, a little mint extract, and some cacao nibs. Yeah, you're going to want to write that down. Close your eyes and imagine Girl Scout thin mints. Okay. Next, and thank me later, boost your muscle benefits of an otherwise low protein meal. This is a lot of times something that I'll share with my, really wanting to be vegan clients, or vegetarian either, that they're trying to, but often will get full and they can't get a very high protein meal in. Having just drinking, a simple shake, meaning, unsweetened almond milk or water even, plus the protein powder as, instead of a glass of water with their meal, that'll boost the protein intake. So those with but less of an appetite, maybe cooking for one and you just get tired of cooking for one, having your light meal plus the something to boost it. Even, so dessert worthy smoothies, even cookies using protein powder that reduces the sugar spike, and in some cases make it a potential breakfast. As a travel companion next. So I kind of talked about at the end of a trip, but as we travel more often again, in each of my recent 6 trips this year, 2021, I had protein and a shaker bottle packed so that I had a ready to go to boost of protein for pre-workouts at the hotel, breakfast, and before meals I knew would be too low in protein for me. Flipping50's paleo protein doesn't dissolve very well in a shaker bottle. So that's both a factor of the hydro beef making process and the fact that there's no chemical dissolvent in it, unlike a large percentage of other brands on the shelves. To mix successfully, you do need a blender for that. So if I was staying at my family's home or at an Airbnb, no problem. But at a hotel, I just pack a little immersion blender. Doesn't work quite as beautifully, but definitely works better than a shaker bottle. So don't skip something like fiber. Fiber Boost is my product, but you could use psyllium husk. Most Americans average about 15 grams of fiber daily. For women over 50, the recommendation, though it's still lower than probably supports blood sugar and the elimination of toxins and excess estrogen, is 21 grams. Most functional practitioners recommend somewhere between 35 and 50 grams of fiber a day. So let your body decide for you. If you have weight to lose, keep in mind toxins are stored in our bodies in fat. It's like your body does that for you to remove them and encapsulate them so it's safer for you. That makes it hard, though, for you to release fat because your body is protecting you. Again, fiber helps to, once you've sweated, maybe exercised or done sauna, to release those toxins. Fiber helps then to eliminate those from your system more efficiently and get them out of your system. To boost your fiber, start by counting your current daily average fiber intake. Don't shoot for that arbitrary 35 grams. That's crazy. If you're sitting at 12 grams of fiber a day, you're going to be extremely uncomfortable and or be constipated, maybe have diarrhea. You could have either from having too much too soon. So just figure out by counting, drive yourself nuts by label reading and plugging into Google what you're eating to get your average a day, and do that over 3 to 5 days. And then say, okay, here's what I'm eating on average for fiber. Add 5 to that, and that's your next goal. Hold that for the next week every day, just that same number. And that's how you gradually let your body adapt. And the following week, you can continue to up until you're at a number that feels like this is great. I have great satiety. I'm never hungry. Regular in the restroom. All things good. Probably your gut will be a little flatter because sometimes that bloating is really you backed up. So remember to increase your water if you're increasing your fiber. And bonus, protein and fiber together kill cravings. All right, there you have it. I'm going to whip through those really quickly one more time. 10 ways to increase your protein. Quick breakfast option, an on-the-go option, a pre-workout support, post-workout support, boost the protein content of other breakfast foods. And really, I didn't elaborate on that one. But if you're eating oatmeal and just insist, okay. If you're still a cereal lover, before I pour anything on cereal anymore, I would blend that milk with protein and use that on top of it. Okay. As a light meal, anytime. A midday guiltless snack. Boost your muscle benefits of an otherwise low protein meal. Maybe you're just feeling like butternut squash soup. You still got to get some protein in, right? Make your desserts more nutritious and less insulin spiking. You can create puddings, mousse, dessert-worthy smoothies, even cookies like balls, protein balls with protein powder in them that'll reduce the sugar spike and in some cases make it almost like a breakfast. And last but not least, as a travel companion. That is 10 ways. And your protein powder doesn't have to be your entire meal. You don't have to do it every day, but it can be a staple for you on the shelf to be insurance that ensures that you get what you need for your muscles on a daily basis. So there you have it. I would love to know if you're using protein powder, if you have questions about the brand, the label that you're at. So the best way to ask is to take a snapshot of the label, including the ingredients, not just the how much protein, how much fat that is in it. And if you're using Flipping 50, I'd love to know what's your favorite. Plant power, paleo power, and are you using Fiber Boost to increase the amount of fiber that you're taking in? And what have you noticed since doing it? All right, now it's up to you. All the questions are on your side. And what are you waiting for? Let's start Flipping 50 today.